Wednesday edition, Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Gruber Law Offices, One Call That's All studios in downtown Milwaukee. Our guy, producer Tiny Hands Hunter Vaughn, with us back at the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison. Across ESPN Wisconsin on YouTube, ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison, the ESPN Madison Facebook page, and available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Wisconsin On Demand. Just search Mr. Relevant. You want to catch full episode podcast for free, commercial free, wherever you get your podcast. Lots to get into today, obviously, right? Milwaukee Bucks get a big win in Game 5 last night. That series now 3-2. They still trail Indiana. They'll go back to Indiana for that'd be Game 6 tomorrow. Will they have Giannis is the big question for obvious reasons. But the Bucks are alive. And that's something that's really interesting to me because it was a team I ruled out. It was a team that I called Hunter. I'm going to get the name of the book wrong again. Was it the Alexander and the No Good, Horrible, Very Bad Day?
I think right? That was close. I don't remember. That was a Josh DiMaggio special.
It sure was, and the Bucks. I called it the No Good, Horrible, Very Bad season. Which it has been, but last night was a heck of a win as Pat Beverly was awesome. Chris Middleton, again, was awesome. He joins like royalty in terms of NBA postseason performances, 25, 10, and 5 for the third straight game. I think he's one of 12 now to ever do that in an NBA playoff series. So pretty badass stuff from Chris Middleton, who's laying it all out there, man, and keeping the Bucks alive as they get ready for Game 6 in Indiana tomorrow. Want to talk about Devontae Adams, who was on Max Crosby's podcast. Want to get into some of the stuff he said about Jordan Love and obviously the end of his time in Green Bay. Some really interesting stuff from the former Packers' number one wide receiver. Rob Demovsky, ESPN NFL Nation reporter, will join me in about 15 or so minutes to talk NFL draft, to talk about the impending Jordan Love contract extension, all the in-betweens on the green and gold. Have a lot of stuff for Rob, so looking forward to catching up with him for the first time. I think it's since before the San Francisco playoff game since we've had Rob on the show. So looking forward to catching up with Rob Demovsky, who will join us, like I said, in about 15 minutes. Brewers got in a fight. Bees infested a ballpark. We've got jersey numbers. We've got coaching changes, all still ahead with the on Mr. Relevant. Let's start with the Bucks, though. 115-92 over the Indiana Pacers last night at Fiserv Forum. So the bad part for my wallet, but the good part for me about being in Milwaukee is I can make heat of the moment decisions, which I did last night. It was about 8:10, 8:30 or so tip at Fiserv Forum between the Pacers and the Bucks. And I said, you know what? I think I want to go to this game. I think I want to go. So I got on one of those apps. I found some tickets. I went to Fiserv. It's the first time I've been at a Bucks game in Fiserv. I've been in Fiserv Forum a few times, but never for a Bucks game. And let me tell you, that atmosphere was as badass as it gets, dude, right? Like, after you saw what happened to Bobby Portis in Game 4 in Indiana, where he's ejected for some nonsensical behavior, you see Pat Bev being the pest he is and triggering Opie Toppin to the point where he pushes Pat Bev over in front of the Bucks bench, and you have the entire crowd at Fiserv Forum yelling, "Kick him out." Like, it's just an unbelievable atmosphere that you only get in the postseason. And some of the ridiculousness that comes with this budding rivalry between the Pacers and the Bucks. So I loved the energy from Bucks fans in Fiserv Forum yesterday, and I was right there with them. Hunter, you remember that fad, that trend of the really big hats? Do you remember that? Where Jair, I think, was one of the first people, Jair Alexander of the Packers?
Yeah.
Was one of the first people to wear one of those really big hats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah. They were gross, but
dude,
yeah.
Dude, they weren't gross. They were so cool.
They were.
I was in love with them. I almost bought a customized ESPN Madison one.
Of course you did.
But it was like $300. So I ended up not pulling the trigger. Dude sitting directly to my left at the Bucks game last night had a custom Milwaukee Bucks giant hat. And I just feel like a friendship is blossoming from that, as he was just speaking my language with that giant-ass hat. So I was pretty fired up about that personally, but that was good stuff yesterday. Good crowd, good energy. And now the question that I certainly wouldn't have been asking on Monday, that all of a sudden I'm thinking about asking on Wednesday is, are the Bucks back in this series? Because this is the way I've just had to look at it the last not even 24 hours since that game ended, close to 11 o'clock last night, 14 hours ago, is what would have happened in Game 4 had Bobby Portis not been ejected, who had a very big game last night, for the Bucks in a big win? I don't know that this series is 3-1 nor 3-2. I think if Bobby Portis is alive in Game 4, this is 3-2 Bucks, not 3-2 Pacers. And this might be a Bucks and 6 type deal because Giannis seemingly is trending in the right direction. Dame Lillard potentially trending in the right direction to make an appearance still if this series goes 7. I don't know that I'm ready to rule the Bucks out. I think the Bucks might be alive. I'm not saying they're winning at all. I'm not saying they're even getting past the Pacers. But obviously, naturally, after a win last night, I'm feeling much better today than I was yesterday or Monday about the Milwaukee Bucks' chances going forward. I think this is a team that's finding its rhythm without its two leading scorers in Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. First team in NBA history to win a playoff game without their 2 leading scorers, which is an absurd stat to me that's never happened before. Huge win for the Bucks. Huge game tomorrow for the Bucks. And I am incredibly intrigued to see what comes of this series and what continues to develop in terms of this Pacers-Bucks rivalry. Because I don't think it's going anywhere. But as I mentioned, I was at the game, but I was getting texts galore. I was seeing tweets galore about the fan in the stands that was yelling behind the national broadcast. I think it was on TNT last night. Hunter, I know you were did you watch this game or not?
So I didn't because I've talked about it before.
Did you give up on them?
No, it's just I'm a little superstitious when it comes to watching my teams play in the playoffs. I found this out during the Blackhawks Stanley Cup runs where if I watched the game and they lost, I would not watch the next game and I would just follow along or listen to the radio. And then if they won, that's how I'm listening to it the rest of the series. So I didn't watch game 1 of this one. They won. And then I watched the last 3 games and they lost. And then they started losing in the first quarter last night. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this. Like, I can't do it. Like, I'll just put the Brewer game on and it'll be fine. And then I'm following along on the app and I'm like, well, I'm not watching any more Bucks games in the playoffs because clearly they can't win when I watch.
So it's a superstition thing for you, and you think you have that much effect on what the outcome of the
I
Bucks
think the
game is.
universe has decided that I'm the person that is just going to get tortured by not being able to see the Bucks win if I watch them on TV. That's where my head is at. It's delusional. It's messed up. I should probably seek professional help, but this is where I'm at, and I have to ride with it.
We will see what happens in Game 6 between the Pacers and the Bucks. As long as Hunter doesn't watch, I like our chances.
I won't
Milwaukee Bucks fans. Good news. Want to get to this, though. Davante Adams appearing on Max Crosby's podcast, his teammate with the Las Vegas Raiders. And this clip went mega viral yesterday, as it is number one, it is Davante Adams talking about Jordan Love, but in turn, it is also Davante Adams talking about himself and his role within Vegas and his role in leaving the Green Bay Packers a couple of years ago when he was traded to Las Vegas. This on Max Crosby's podcast. Just take a listen. Tell me if you notice anything. We'll recap together on the other side.
Really wordy way of saying at the time when I was there, I hadn't necessarily seen enough to say this is for sure what I should do. But in hindsight, like we talked about, I mean, the kid is a baller, man. I'm so happy for him, and you know, I haven't really had a chance to truly sit down and talk with him, but I want to tell him at some point, like, you know, I definitely don't regret changing, but I'm super proud of what you've done, and you know, if there was a way I could pull you over here and you know and drag you with me like that, you know, that would have been cool too, because you know, obviously we saw what he did at the end of the year, but I don't regret what I did, but at the same time, it's definitely, you look back on it, you like, damn, that boy got a ball.
So there's Davante Adams on the Rush with Max Crosby. And if you were listening to that the same way I was, I heard him say twice, I don't regret what I did. And then a third thing I heard him say was, if I could pull him over here, oh man, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Not word for word, but essentially what he said. And yeah, Jordan Love is an effing baller. And he was effing balling at the end of his first season as a starter, first full season as a starter last year into the postseason. Jordan Love looks the part. And that's something we've determined probably, I don't know, end of November, early December at the latest. for Jordan Love. And this is a big week for Jordan Love because the first day he can sign a fresh contract extension is in 2 days. On Friday, May 3rd, that is the 1-year anniversary of Jordan Love's extension he signed last year. Can only sign a contract extension once in a calendar year. So he has to wait until Friday, the earliest he can do it. It's a big year. It's a big week for Jordan Love, and it's a big indication of where other NFL players view Jordan Love in the pedestal or the rankings of NFL quarterbacks. Jordan Love is high on that list after what he was able to do in the 2023 NFL season. But Davante Adams saying multiple times, I don't regret what I did. I don't regret leaving Green Bay. I don't regret coming to Vegas. When it comes to me, man, the only time I ever say, I don't regret that, is probably when at least a little bit I regret it. Right? Whenever I make a life choice, whenever something goes down, and I say, yeah, I don't regret it, I probably regret it a little bit. And I think Davante Adams, it comes out pretty clear in that 45-second clip from his podcast with Max Crosby that he regrets leaving Green Bay. And rightfully so. When you've got a mixture of Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo, and now Gardner Minshew throwing you the football when you could have had Jordan Love, I'd probably regret the hell out of it too. But what a shot at his current quarterback room, by the way. Saying, yeah, if I had the opportunity to pull him over here, man, I totally would. That's Davante Adams screaming from the rooftops that he doesn't trust his quarterback room, Hunter.
But in his defense, when he left, he had no, I don't think the front office was giving him a very good indication of this is what's happening, this is our plan, this is the route we want to go, to get him to have any sense of, oh, hey, I should stay. And every report was kind of Jordan Love, I don't know if he's the guy. It wasn't until this year that he was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is it. So...
No, I think you're right. In the other part of Davante, which you hear right off the top there, where he says, I didn't really see it when I was there. And Rob Demovsky, we're going to talk to in a few minutes. And Jason Wilde, both friends of the show who are very, very close to the team, much closer than you and I are, Hunter. I mean, they are much closer to the team to Davante Adams' level than to our level, right? I mean, they are very, they're there every day. They're there at training camp. They're there in the OTAs and the rookie mini camps. It's almost a resounding majority that say, yeah, I never really saw it from Jordan Love until last year. But for Davante Adams to come out and say, hey, I wish I could pull you over here, means not only did he exceed Davante Adams' expectations for him as a starting quarterback in the NFL, he blew those expectations out of the water. He completely exceeded anybody's expectations when it came to what Jordan Love was capable of. And Jordan Love clearly is capable of a lot. The sky is the limit, and that might not even be the limit for what Jordan Love showed. I mean, when you think about the cast of random and the way he elevated some of those guys that were running the incorrect routes into October and even November and didn't fully comprehend the playbook, which is elaborate because anything with Matt LaFleur offensively is pretty elaborate. So Davante Adams to come out and say the words, I wish I could pull you over here, gives you a pretty clear thought on what Davante Adams thinks of the Raiders quarterback room and a pretty clear thought of where he ranks in the NFL. I love it. I love it from Davante Adams and him essentially, I don't want to say eating his words, but looking at his decision to kind of force his way out and push his way out of Green Bay. And I get it, right? There was a family tie to that. He wanted to be closer to home. And to your point, Hunter, he wanted to play with his college quarterback in Derek Carr, who was only there for a season. So it is what it is, but I thought that was really interesting stuff from Davante Adams. All right, let's do this. Door County Distillery, our friends from DCD back with us. Let's take a look. I took a trip up there 2 weeks ago, up to Door County Distillery. Filmed a bunch of commercials you're going to be seeing over the course of the next couple of months with our friends from Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, and award-winning spirits. And then our guy, Rob Demovsky, ESPN NFL Nation reporter, covering the Packers, joins us to talk all things NFL draft, Jordan Love, all the in-betweens. Coming up next, it's Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf.
Hi.
Nothing bigger right now than espresso martinis and confession. I've never had one, Beth, so I think I need you to teach me how to make one.
It's real simple. With ours, we do our Java infusion, which is our coffee-infused spirit, our vodka, some chocolate sauce, and some coconut cream so it's dairy-free for those who can't have lactose. We're gonna start with 2.5 ounces of our Java. This is a martini, so lots of booze.
Yes.
1.5 of our vodka, about a 1/2 ounce of your chocolate syrup and your coconut cream, or cream if you prefer. Shake this for about 15 seconds.
She's a pro. I'd spill everywhere.
Strain that into our martini glass. There we go. Quick and easy espresso martini.
Time to try it. First ever espresso martinis. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, that's delicious. That's really good. I'm an espresso martini girly now. Yeah, no doubt.
Who isn't?
Check out their website with a huge list of unique cocktail recipes at DoorCountyDistillery.com. That's DoorCountyDistillery.com. Point out about that commercial is that I was fed the line, I'm an espresso martini girly. I don't take it back. I'm just saying that was a line I was fed. All right, joining us now. You read him, you see him on ESPN. ESPN NFL Nation reporter doing a great job, as always, covering the Packers, and our teammate here at ESPN Wisconsin. The great Rob Demovsky joins us now, the state champion, journalist, and father. Rob, the offseason just never has a quiet moment, it seems. We're just a couple of days removed from the NFL draft. How are you? Did you get some sleep over the course of the last few days?
I'm good, Alex. Yeah, it's, you know what? I like the draft the way it's set up now with 3 days. In the old days, it was 2 marathon days. Now it's 2 short days and 1 longish day. So we got rookie mini camp coming up this weekend, Friday and Saturday. They practice. Then we get into OTAs where we get like 1 day a week of access. Then we get the mandatory mini camp like June, I want to say like 10th, 11th, 12th, somewhere in there. Then the season's finally over. Like, you guys all call this the off season. This is a continuation of last season. The end of the season is the June period before we start training camp next year.
That's a fair point. It's a little bit different for you and me, I guess, with that. But before we dive into what the Packers did in the draft, which I was really impressed with Brian Gutekunst and the team and some of the takeaways they had, but 775,000 people over the course of 3 days, Rob, in Detroit. My mind just goes, what is Green Bay, Wisconsin going to look like next year if that many people are going to Detroit at the end of April? Are we ready for this in Green Bay?
As a 26-year resident of Brown County in the Green Bay area, I am scared that we as a community aren't going to be able to pull this off. And I don't know if you remember this, Alex, but when they awarded the draft here, I took a lot of heat on Twitter for saying, I don't think this is the greatest idea. I don't know that this can be pulled off. And if it doesn't, it's going to make us look really, really bad. And I can tell you this, look, the perception of the Packers around the other 31 places in the NFL, they think it's a small town, they're local yokels. And if this doesn't go well, it ain't going to help that reputation. So I hope it goes well. I don't know if they can accommodate anywhere near that number of people. Even Brian Gutekunst after the draft, Alex, made the kind of a joke about, I just hope we can get hotel rooms for our scouts. Because as you know, these scouts don't all live in Green Bay. They're all over the country working throughout the year. I mean, I'm sure they'll find a place to keep them, but it is interesting. The one thing I also think that people need to understand is it won't change the Packers draft operation. It's funny because, and this is a common misconception, I think people think that everybody goes to the draft, like all the people picking, all the media. That's not the case. Everyone stays at their team facility. The scouts, the GM, the coaches, and the media are all at the team facility. Now in Detroit, the team facility is way out in the suburbs, and the draft itself was downtown, so they didn't really mix. But here, it's one and the same.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what this is going to look like next year. And you mentioned you've lived in the Green Bay Brown County area for over 25 years. I was there for the first 18 years of my life in Green Bay, and I have my doubts now, Rob, after seeing the way people essentially infiltrated Detroit, right? And it looked like a heck of a party. I just worry that I don't know that Green Bay has the infrastructure to really hold that many people. And I imagine there will be more than 775,000 over the course of 3 days because it's at the Mecca of football, right? Yeah. It's at Lambeau Field. So
maybe the best thing
come next year.
Yeah, maybe the best thing that could happen is we get a snowstorm and it keeps some people from being able to get here. Right? People think, the weather, that we got to worry about the weather. Maybe bad weather would be good because the draft weekend this year up here was beautiful, and it was it was in Detroit.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
You could get anything here in late April. You could get snow, you could get 70s, you can get anything.
I really liked the winter we had this year, but you might be right about that anyway. So NFL draft in the books for the Packers. They go O-line with Jordan Morgan out of Arizona in the first round. Then they address defense. They go running back in round 3. I just thought through the 11 picks Goody ended up selecting, Rob, he addressed a lot of the needs. I think the one big question is about cornerback, which we'll get to what Matt LaFleur had to say about Eric Stokes in a second. But overall, I think the 11 picks he made addressed positions of need, and I don't think they strayed too far away from best player available. What'd you make of the 11 picks?
Yeah, I wrote for ESPN.com the other day that it's not often you can get, the best player on your board at multiple positions. Obviously, the team picking number 1 overall is going to get it. But the Packers got the very first inside linebacker taken in Edgerrin Cooper in round 2. So you would think he's the best of that group. Marshawn Lloyd thinks he's the best running back of that group. And there's some analyst, Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network, believes that. And then you look at the 2 safeties that they drafted, Williams and Bullard. They were the 2 best safeties at the Senior Bowl. Now, I realize that not every safety goes to the Senior Bowl, but they were voted the best safety on each of their respective teams there. So you're looking at 4 guys that you could argue, were the best at their position that the Packers were able to get. I'm actually doing sort of a roster reset right now, kind of going through it and looking at how it's different. I do think that there's going to be some competition, though. I mean, and I think the offensive line training camp could be wild. I mean, it really could. You could have 1 different starter. You could have 3 different starters. I mean, it could be really, really interesting what happens on the offensive line, depending on, if they think James Morgan is a plug and play left tackle. Okay, then what do you do with Rasheed Walker? If you think he's really good, do you move him to right tackle and bump Zach Tom inside, or do you think that the center you drafted is really good? And I mean, look, Josh Myers has been, sort of on the thin ice for a while now. And do you think it's Jacob Monk, right, from Duke is the center? I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there on the offensive line, and I think that's going to be a real fun competition. The safety situation, obviously, Xavier McKinney is one of the starters, but which one of these rookies is going to take the reins and be the other guy? And then, of course, the inside linebacker position with Cooper is just going to be so much faster. I think him and Quay Walker just look like a perfect pairing of speed. John Eric Sullivan, the director of player personnel, said, the old days, the inside linebacker used to be a thicker, burlier guy who just ran up the A-gap. Now it's a guy who's got to go side to side and back and forth, and you want guys that can run, and Cooper was obviously one of the faster guys in the draft at that spot.
Yeah, this Jeff Hafley defense, it is highlight number 1 for me when it comes to things I'm most intrigued to see come training camp in the preseason. Because we have an idea, right? We understand it's the base 4-3. We understand some of the pieces they picked up. You mentioned McKinney and obviously the pieces through the draft. It seems like they want to play some speedy, downhill defensive football. And I just want to see what it looks like come July. How much do you expect to see actual schematics, I guess, when it comes to this rookie mini camp this weekend? I imagine not a ton, right?
No, the rookie camp, no, because you think about it, they've got 11 draft picks and 8 undrafted free agents, 19 guys. They're going to bring in probably 25 tryout guys just so you can line up and practice. And then every year there's a handful of guys that have eligibility that were here last, like practice squad guys. Some of those guys can still participate in the rookie camp depending on how many games they played last year. So, I mean, but really you're talking about, 50 guys that, only maybe a dozen of them are even going to be on the team this year. The rookie mini camp is more about just showing the guys how they practice, what the meetings are like. It's like an orientation to it. I do think though, when we get the first OTA, look, that I think we'll get an idea. It is funny though, Alex, like even last summer, Joe Barry and all those guys were going to play more aggressive. Every defense wants to play faster, more aggressive. Just once, I'd like to hear a defensive coordinator say, "Yeah, no, we're going to play slower and less aggressive." Right? So it's like I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But I hope finally it comes to fruition for the. I feel like that my entire life, Rob, outside of maybe 2 seasons, it's been a defense filled with disappointments, right? I mean, you can't stop the rush one game. The one that will always live rent free in my head happened a couple of years ago. That was the Raheem Mostert game for the 49ers.
Yep.
Like, I feel like
Yep.
he's still running from that game. So we will see on that. A couple of draft wrap-up rapid fires at you, both on the offensive side. Number one, were you surprised they drafted a quarterback?
No, because Gutekunst basically told us that they were going to do it. Michael Pratt's an interesting one because I was looking at Matt Miller, ESPN draft analyst. He had that guy ranked as the 129th player in his draft. He ranked like 400 guys, which how you determine the difference between number 350 and 351, I don't know. But he had Pratt ranked 129th. They got him at 245.
There you go. So that sounds like a steal in a late round. Like they got Michael Pratt out of Tulane. Same side of the ball, running back. They go with a running back, which I think you and I were on the same page on even before the whole Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones thing went down. They need kind of a different dynamic of back, especially now that you have Jacobs and Dillon in that room together. So I don't think the pick was surprising, but a day 2 pick was a little bit surprising. I was happy with it. What'd you make of the Marshawn Lloyd pick out of USC?
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, the only other day 2 running back that Gutekunst has taken since 2018 when he took over was A.J. Dillon, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Dillon, yeah.
You're totally right. I did think all along, whether Aaron Jones came back or, even after signing Jacobs, because look, Jacobs, he signed a 4-year deal, but it's probably more like a 2-year deal, that eventually you need to start looking for the next guy that you can develop into be a starter. And, I don't know that Marshawn Lloyd is that, but you might as well start trying to find one sooner rather than later. I mean, it's not unlike the quarterback scenario, really.
No, it's really not. I view it similarly. Outside of, obviously, Pratt probably won't be taking snaps, but competition breeds success typically. And I know Brian.
But I guess what I mean by that, Alex, is that it's better to draft one when you have one than when you need one. Right? Like, I mean, the Jordan Love thing that, you don't necessarily need a running back right now, but if you can draft one and develop them, and then in a couple of years, he's ready to go, I think it's a good idea.
Atlanta trying to steal that theory at the quarterback position, I think, drafting Michael Penix at number 8 after paying Kirk Cousins $1 bajillion this offseason. I mean, that is so fascinating to me, even almost a week removed. A couple more things for you, Rob. Obviously, this could be a big week as May 3rd is the anniversary of Jordan Love's contract extension from a year ago, meaning his payday could be coming as soon as Friday. What do you know on that? I imagine they've probably been thinking about this since, I don't know, probably before the season ended about the Jordan Love and making him the long-term solution. How soon do you think a deal could be in place between the two parties?
Yeah, I mean, we know they've had some talks dating back to February. Brian Gutekunst told us that he was going to meet with his agents at the Combine late February. I'm sure those conversations have continued. The one thing is, they obviously can extend him on May 3rd or 4th, whatever it is, but they certainly don't have to. They can certainly wait, however long they want. He's under contract for this year. However, I do think there will be a deal done before Jordan Love plays a snap of regular season football. Whether that's done right away or done in July or August, I'm not sure. Packers history tells you that they kind of wait till they have to do something to do it. The other thing too is, I mean, how far are they willing to go? Where are they willing to go financially? And are they there yet? My suspicion is that it's going to take a little bit longer. But, hey, if they have a deal done on, would it be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, sometime here in the next few days after that deadline of the 12-month thing passes where they couldn't do something, wouldn't totally surprise me.
3 injury updates you heard from the head coach, Matt LaFleur, back over the weekend. And I just want to go one by one quickly, Rob, on each of these because they're all fascinating to me in different ways. Eric Stokes been a full go in the offseason program. Quote, he looks great, end quote, from Matt LaFleur. Obviously, when you put a first-round investment on a guy at cornerback and you don't draft one this year until the 7th round, that indicates to me everybody in the building believes Stokes is good to go. Did you take that the same way?
That's the way I took it, although the interesting thing is by tomorrow they have to decide whether they'll pick his 5th-year option up, which I'm sure they won't. There's really no reason to, given what I think it would be $12 million guaranteed for 2025. But the idea that he's good to go this year, and then you can always re-sign him after that, like they did with, I think they did that with Nick Perry, where they didn't pick up his option and then they let him play out that year, and then they ended up signing him to another deal. So I do think that it's that they must feel pretty good about it, and obviously they feel good about Carrington Valentine too.
Your memory on some of this stuff is unbelievable. Would everybody around you, personal life, say you have a good memory for everyday life things, or is this a work-only thing for you, Rob? This was not one of my planned questions for the record.
Yeah, Alex, somehow I seem to forget to do some of the things that my wife has listed on the to-do list. Today it was sweep up the floor, take the lawnmower in for service. I think there was fill the bird feeders outside. Not sure I've gotten any of those done yet.
Well, I appreciate you spending some time with me. Quickly back to the injuries, and then we'll let you go get to the honey-do list. Christian Watson, it seems like they feel good about his hamstring, but in your note on Twitter, you said it'll be more of a thing we find out more in OTAs when it comes to the hamstring, but they do feel good about him. And we know how big of an impact he makes when he's on the field.
Yeah, I mean, look, that was maybe one of the most important things that they had to do this offseason was figure out how to keep him healthy. We know they sent him down to Madison to see with the specialist there. It's a hold your breath thing right now. I mean, until he gets through a season without a hamstring, you're always going to be worried about it.
No doubt about it. That's always a tricky one. But the weirdest one of these updates from Matt LaFleur is the Kingsley Enagbare one, the JJ Enagbare one. We thought he tore his ACL. It sounds like he didn't fully tear his ACL. He didn't have ACL surgery, so he may be ready to go earlier. I'm very confused by this one. Can you please tell me what is true and what is not true?
I don't understand it at all, Alex. Not that I'm comparing myself to an elite NFL athlete, but I partially tore my ACL playing City League basketball. And I remember literally talking to Packers trainer Pepper Burris, longtime trainer, and I said the MRI showed a partial tear, and he's like, there's no such thing as a partial ACL tear. That's like being a little pregnant. You can't be a little pregnant because an ACL tear will not heal itself. It won't. MCL will heal, LCL, all the other CLs will heal themselves. An ACL will not. And eventually, if you have an injury to the ACL, even if it's a partial injury, it's going to tear. It's not going to get better. I just don't understand it. Unless they completely misdiagnose it and it's not an ACL, although I believe they did say he has an ACL injury. So none of us that have been around this team long enough, unless something's changed with ACLs and now you can be a little pregnant, I don't really know. I can't explain it.
It's the line of the day. A little pregnant. I love it. Rob, I feel like I always go long on time with you. We packed a ton of Packers info into about 19 minutes there. So really appreciate the time as always. We'll do it again soon.
All right, Alex. Have a great one. We'll be seeing you.
Sounds good, my friend. That's Rob Demovsky, the great Rob Demovsky, ESPN NFL Nation reporter covering all things green and gold. And like I say, I always tell him I need about 15 minutes. We went just short of 19 there with Rob, but I feel like we jammed pretty much everything I had for him in there. And I wanted to get through pretty much all the notes I had on the Packers that I needed somebody smarter than me to answer, like being a little pregnant or having a partially torn ACL. That might be the best comparison to something that doesn't make sense I've ever heard. That's like being a little pregnant. I think I'm going to steal that, Hunter. What do you think? So you think I can mix that in successfully?
Successfully, no, but you're going to try and mix it in.
Yeah, I like to do that with phrases I don't fully understand, but having a partial
most phrases,
like being a little pregnant. Yeah, I like most phrases. Exactly. You're totally right on that. All right, a couple more things I want to touch base on before we wrap up the show. And again, big thanks to Rob Demovsky. He's always so great. As my microphone, again, falls apart here in the Grubel office is one call. That's all studio. I'm too aggressive with the microphones, I think. That's my own fault. But speaking of aggression, wow, what a transition. Last night at AmFam Field, baby, no shortage of it. Abner Uribe getting into it. Freddie Peralta getting ejected. Pat Murphy's been ejected twice this week. We had a benches clearing brawl with the Brewers beating the Tampa Bay Rays yesterday. Let's roll the film over the top of me, Hunter, because we just got to give a little play-by-play on what the heck's going on in this brawl. It was all over the place at AmFam Field as Uribe throws the first punch. He gets one thrown back at him. People are falling all over. It's unbelievable for about a good 10 seconds, and then everybody comes to the save. People are getting pulled back. People are still going at each other in front of the dugouts in the top of the 8th inning as the Brewers are just smoking the Rays last night at AmFam Field. The video footage, courtesy of Valley Sports Wisconsin. Uribe is going to get suspended. He threw the first punch. I think we can all expect that. And I imagine there will be plenty of fines and all the in-betweens that come of this as well. But I think this is the second time this year the Brewers have been in a benches-clearing brawl, which I got to be honest with you. I'm not necessarily like, hey, I love a little UFC in my MLB, but I like a little fire in my baseball team, especially when they're young up-and-comers who do not have high expectations. Everybody's playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because when you're down some of your best arms, when you're down Christian Yelich, you've got to bring a little fire in order to win some ball games here. And when people kind of start tuning out baseball for a couple of months as we get into the heat of the NHL and NBA playoffs, after the first couple of weeks of baseball, people kind of start to fade away. But you know how you keep people's attention, especially when we're in the middle of a Bucks win or go home playoff game? You throw a little UFC in your MLB. I love to see that fire from the Milwaukee Brewers yesterday. Now, I'm not going to love what happens when we see the suspensions come down, but I'm so fascinated by this Pat Murphy-led Brewers team. I've said it since week one, right? There are a bunch of young up-and-comers who are unproven and are not picked to win this division and are not picked to be a playoff team. And not only are they coming out swinging the bats, for the most part, there's been a few exceptions to that, they're coming out swinging the fist. I'd love to see it. Hunter, what'd you make of this brawl that I know you were watching live because you weren't watching the Bucks due to your superstition last night?
I absolutely love it. This Brewer team isn't going to take crap from anybody. They're going to stand on their business, as the kids say. I think that's how they say it, at least. And they're not going to back down from anybody. And I absolutely love it. Because if they're going to do this to the Rays, you know, they even got a little chippy at times with the Yankees. Like, if they're willing to do it now in April, they're going to be doing it even more in the playoffs, and I absolutely love it. I'm excited to see the fire that they're going to have because they play the Cubs this weekend, and it's the first time that they're playing the now Craig Counsell-led team. I love it. The suspensions are worth it. If they keep getting suspensions, then I'll start to be concerned. But right now, go ahead, have the fire. Don't let anybody try and push you around.
Just to give you the suspension updates, by the way, which came through while we were on the air here. Pat Murphy suspended 2 games. He will serve beginning today, which means guess who's managing the Crew the next 2 days? Ricky freaking Weeks is the manager of the Brewers for the next 2 days. That is fun. Not so fun. Freddie Peralta, 5-game suspension. Abner Uribe, 6-game suspension. And obviously, as always happens in baseball, they are appealing the suspension. Uribe definitely won't win his. I imagine Freddie won't either, to be real honest with you. Funny YouTube comment here from Joseph S. on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube channel. Strouf, you're not going to love it when Uribe breaks his hand either. Yeah, Devin Williams style. But at least Uribe's punching a human being and not a wall after you win a division title. Right? Still one of the silliest injuries I remember in a long time. And I also don't love it when people are throwing punches in a or maybe not quite do or die, but game 5 of the NBA playoffs, or game 4 rather, when you're in Indiana, you really need to steal one on the road to even up that series prior to coming home. And you play 7 minutes and get kicked out of the game like Bobby Portis did on Sunday. Didn't love that either. But on April 30th, when you're playing the Tampa Bay Rays and you're winning by 6 runs, I don't mind seeing a little fire. This game's been underway, by the way, for about an hour, or almost about an hour. The finale between the Rays and the Brewers over at AmFam Field. I don't believe any punches have been thrown yet in that one. Correct me if I'm wrong if you've got it on a TV in the background. But that was fascinating. And I got to be honest with you, I don't even know if that was the craziest thing that happened at a ballpark yesterday on April 30th. Because we see brawls quite often in baseball. I mean, not super often, but more often than what you saw in Arizona yesterday. Dodgers Diamondbacks was delayed yesterday due to an infestation of bees, and you got to check out this video footage from Sportsnet LA. I mean, it is absolutely unbelievable. This guy thinks he's a superstar. He thinks he's the belle of the ball. As the beekeeper locally in Arizona comes out with whatever his little suck machine is, and he's getting all these bees off.
Hold up.
Yeah, holding up. What's up?
The suck machine? Have you heard of a vacuum, Strouf? The suck machine. The suck machine. The suck machine. Like, come on, man.
I didn't want to call it a vacuum because I wasn't sure that was the correct phrasing for this. I figured that it was more so, safe. I don't think they're killing the bees, and I feel like a vacuum indicates the bees were killed. So that's why I went with suck machine, but you're right. Probably not the best phrasing by me. That's a good pause by me. But you saw the video footage there. This dude is in the air on a crane, pumping his fist, pumping up the crowd. And then to celebrate his success of clearing out the bees with the suck machine, they let the dude throw out the first pitch prior to Dodgers Diamondbacks. This footage is unbelievable. He's flipping around the hat. He's pumping up the crowd. It's not really a hat. What do you call that thing, Hunter? The protective gear you wear for bees.
I have no idea. Just like a beekeeping suit. I don't know.
Yeah. He's flailing around the beekeeping suit hat. So it's unbelievable. Joseph, yes, to answer your question, Pat Murphy will miss his first chance to manage against Craig Counsell coming up this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, because they get an off day tomorrow, and then Friday will be game one between the Cubs and the Brewers, and Pat Murphy will be suspended for that. So it'll be Ricky Weeks, Craig Counsell, throwback infield for the Brewers there, with Counsell and Weeks going head-to-head coming up on Friday between the Cubs and the Brewers. All right, time to wrap up the show, as we always do with What Strouf Learned. You learn something new every day. I learned 2 new things in the last 24 hours that I want to get to quick, and we'll wrap it up. I got to run to, as people like to joke about in the ESPN Milwaukee and ESPN Madison YouTube channels, I got to run to my show prep meeting, KBN, Kyle Brust and Nortman, starting at 2 o'clock with Kyle Wallace, Ben Brust, Brad Nortman on ESPN Wisconsin. So I want to start with some of the jersey numbers because they're always such a fascinating topic to me, especially in the NFL, because you have great players, but you can't really retire their jersey because they didn't do quite enough to get their jersey retired. But I don't know. It feels like the guys aren't even 6 feet under yet. At least their tenure with the Packers isn't 6 feet under yet before you're giving out jersey numbers. So defensive back safety Evan Williams, who was just drafted by the Packers on day 3 of the NFL draft, has been assigned and has selected jersey number 33 as his new jersey. And obviously that is Aaron Jones' old jersey number. And it had me thinking, what jersey numbers are just weird to look at other people in? We never had the opportunity to see somebody else in a Packers uniform wear number 4 for Brett Favre. We won't either for Aaron Rodgers, number 12. But I came up with 5 numbers that we've seen new people in, at least are going to see new people in come preseason time, and it's just going to look wacky. I start with the low number. Number 2, nobody has technically worn that jersey number since Mason Crosby, the all-time leader in points for the Green Bay Packers, but it is assigned to now 4th-string quarterback Alex Magoo, who I imagine might still be with the team come preseason. And we will see Alex Magoo wearing number 2. It's just going to be weird to see a Green Bay Packer wear number 2 who's not Mason Crosby. Number 21, we saw 2 different Packers wear it post Charles Woodson. Ha-ha, Clinton Dix, and now Eric Stokes. It's still just weird to me when we see a defensive back, and both of them wear 21. 52, Clay Matthews' second stint with the Packers, goes straight to Rashawn Gary the next year. This one's still weird, and it's been several years. Bo Melton wears number 80. Justin Perillo wore number 80, if you remember the old tight end. I think that's strange. Seeing the Bo Melton game, I think that was week 17 on New Year's Eve, to the Minnesota Vikings. Seeing a number 80 shred a Minnesota defense and it not being Donald Driver was really weird to me. Last one, 87. Romeo Doubs now wears that. I actually like that one. That one's not as weird to me because he is a playmaker. He's a reliable receiver. He does everything well. Great route runner, strong hands, like Jordy Nelson. So I feel like that is a safe handoff for a guy whose jersey you're not going to retire. So that is what Strouf learned, number one. Evan Williams, number 33. Before Aaron Jones' tenure as a Packer was even 6 feet underground, we're already giving out his new jersey number. What Strouf learned, number two. If you've been a longtime fan of the show, you know a longtime friend of the show. He's appeared on this show more than anybody else. Chris Orr, the former Wisconsin and Carolina Panthers linebacker, he was drafted high in the United Football League. He ended up saying, you know what, I think my playing days are over. He went and joined Baylor as a grad assistant and announced today Chris Orr is joining Jackson State as its new linebackers coach. So our guy, Chris Orr, in college football as a linebackers coach. We remember the last time we had him on the show was shortly before his brother Zach Orr was named the new defensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens. Chris Orr getting into the coaching world and headed to Jackson State to take over as their linebackers coach. Boy, am I fired up about Chris Orr.
I absolutely love this for him. Working with Chris on Wisconsin College Game Day the last couple of years, the intensity of that linebacker room is going to be incredible. And that's going to be the best part of it. I'm going to watch their games just to watch the defense and watch their linebackers. Love this for Chris. I'm so excited for him.
Chris Orr is known for saying splitting wigs, shortening necks, and I can tell you which linebacker crew is going to do one of the best jobs of that in the country. That will be Jackson State. Very happy for our friend Chris Orr getting a new job at Jackson State, the new linebackers coach there. All right, big thanks to Rob Demovsky for joining the show today. A big thanks to Tiny Hands, Hunter Vaughn, as always, for joining and running the show. We will be back with you on Friday, but programming now. We're going long on Friday, baby. We're doing radio on Friday. Grand opening at the Potawatomi Sportsbook just up the road. They built a radio studio there, and whoever's idea it was is like, hey, day one of the radio studio, let's throw Strouf in there by himself for 2 hours. You're going to regret that decision. No, you're not. It's going to be a great show. We're with you from 12 to 2, noon to 2 on Friday, immediately following Wilde and Tausch, right here on the ESPN Milwaukee and ESPN Madison YouTube channels, as well as on the radio, 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee. 12 to 2, 2-hour edition of Mr. Irrelevant coming up with you on Friday. We'll have a couple of guest hits. We'll play a couple of games. We'll do a whole bunch of stuff on the radio side, which we don't often get to do for 2 hours unsupervised. So, oh boy, we're going to have some fun coming up on Friday at the Potawatomi Sportsbook. That does it for us today. Big thanks as well to Door County Distillery. Good to have him back on Mr. Irrelevant. We're back with you Friday, 12 to 2 on 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee and right here on the YouTube channels. And, of course, the podcast edition available wherever you get your podcast. We'll talk to you then. I'm Alex Strouf. Peace.